from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Harvey rolls into Texas. We'll look at the impacts to farm country, plus the latest crop progress numbers from USDA. In agribusiness, is there a story capable of sparking a soybean rally?
Soybean producers, they will tell you that they can produce the best yields when they get it in early, and they did not get the soybean crop in early enough this year, and I think we're seeing the ramifications of that.
Machinery Pete shows us how to zoom in on price trends and focusing on soil research in Tennessee.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. More rain and more misery in Texas and Louisiana as the remnants of Harvey continue to batter parts of the Gulf Coast. This story continues to change by the hour as search and rescue efforts continue across a wide swath from southeast Texas into Louisiana. Harvey creating catastrophic flooding and heartache, but it's also revealing Herculean efforts to save countless people in the nation's fourth largest city. The losses also mounting in Texas farm country. Our own Betsy Gibbon talked with some in the cotton industry about the impact there in South Texas. Betsy.
Clinton, Harvey made landfall in an area of Texas where cotton growers expected record yields. Many gins there expecting to break their own records as far as ginning bales this year. But after the storm, some cotton gins may not operate for the rest of the season. Well, many images from Hurricane Harvey focus on flooded city streets like Houston. It's acres of flooded fields outside of the suburbs. Cotton bales blown and saturated. This gin near Woodsboro, Texas, destroyed in the storm. Harvey is leaving its mark on the ag community.
It's just that we were lucky enough that the gin got our cotton out of that area before it hit.
Flurkey says he farms north of where the eye hit. He got most of his cotton out of the field and covered, but not all.
And we still have cotton in the field in round bales in places, just not where there was 125-mile-an-hour winds.
He says most of the round bales are in better shape, some with minimal water damage, but a lot of the conventional modules are damaged or gone.
I don't really have a good feel for the amount of acreage that wasn't harvested. In the Corpus area, most of the cotton was harvested. They only had a small percentage still left in the field. So you get on up the upper coast around that El Campo, Wharton area, probably 50% of them may have been still left out in the field. And they were working hard to get that cotton out. A lot of producers were harvesting 24 hours a day, from what I understand, once we knew this storm was coming in.
Williams says as of Thursday, there seems to be minimal damage to warehouses.
There's not as many warehouses as there are gins. So, warehouses in Galveston, I haven't heard anything that they'd flooded or anything. I don't think the warehouse in Corpus Christi flooded as far as I know. Those are the big warehouses.
Clinton, I called multiple gin managers inside and outside of the flooding area. They say they just started ginning or plan to begin in a week or two. And with such a big crop, they expect to be busy.
During a major crisis like this, Americans are willing to help. The American Red Cross is the lead agency in helping people in need. For ranchers and farmers in Texas, the Texas Department of Agriculture can also provide assistance during a natural disaster. It's called the STAR Fund, State of Texas Agriculture Relief Fund. The state ag department says it is accepting monetary donations to help producers who were impacted by the storm. Meanwhile, USDA rolling out its latest crop progress numbers. It shows dwindling conditions in the eastern corn belt for both corn and soybean crops. Now overall, 62% of corn is good to excellent. That's unchanged from last week. Soybeans ticking a point higher, 61 rated good to excellent. Starting with soybeans, Illinois had a 3-point drop. Indiana was unchanged. In the west, Iowa is up 2 points. Nebraska up 4. South Dakota soy seeing a 7-point improvement. Now, state by state on corn, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Ohio, all seeing declines in corn. Minnesota and Nebraska are unchanged, but South Dakota seeing a 4-point jump. 6% of corn now called mature. That's 4 points behind average. Negotiators of the North American Free Trade Agreement are prepping to meet again later this week in Mexico. Over the weekend, President Trump tweeting once again his dislike for the agreement and progress thus far, calling the other negotiators difficult. Meanwhile, senior officials from 11 countries are meeting in Sydney, Australia over the next few days. Their focus, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The gathering focusing on a trade deal for the Pacific Rim region. Leaders hoping to finish the trade pact by November. The U.S. pulled out of the trade deal soon after President Trump took office. Meanwhile, China and India are proposing to the World Trade Organization that the U.S., EU, and other wealthy countries cut their farm subsidies, saying that the $160 billion in support distorts global farm trade. China and India are expected to push the idea to the 164 members of the WTO, that group preparing to meet in Argentina this December. Back home, USDA releasing its latest cattle on feed report. Cattle and calves at the nation's largest feedlots totaling 10.6 million head. That's up 4% over last year. Placements rising 3%, while marketing came in at 1.78 million, also 4% higher. Cattle markets trading higher Monday following that report. Let's get a closer look at what's going on in farm country. For that, we turn to our own meteorologist, Mike Hoffman. He has today's crop comments. Mike?
Good morning to you, Clinton. Today's crop comment comes from Cody Goodnight in southwestern Oklahoma. He says sorghum harvest is in full swing. He's cut about 400 out of 1,600 acres so far. Goodnight says yields are okay. He hopes the later planted crop will be a bit better, though. And taking a look at the weather map, yeah, you can see a couple of tropical systems there that we're still watching, and obviously the big news is still Louisiana and southeastern Texas. We'll have your forecast on where that and the other systems are headed coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
Is there a story capable of pushing soybeans higher? We'll ask the experts from Crop Tour. That's up next, plus Machinery Pete.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, I'm going to tell you about my theory of the wide lens and the zoom lens for used machinery values.
And we look below ground to see the benefits of native grasses. Details as we head in the country. Business. It was a mixed day for markets, including some late session moves. Let's get details from the floor this evening.
Soybeans were steady today, about a 12-cent range. Pretty decent compared to what was happening on Friday. The futures are consolidating as traders are really waiting for news to give it a little direction of the market, but it's still holding relatively strong. The weekly exports were strong, and the report of the 2017-18 Brazil crop came out. They expect that to be a little bit bigger, and that would normally put some pressure on that soybean market, but nothing doing. Wheat also was down again, and really a lot more than we expected. I think that Tropical Storm Harvey, well, it was a hurricane at one point, has really halted all the rail shipments down south, and that definitely put a damper on prices. It added much bearish pressure onto the futures all the way down. As a matter of fact, we're into an area where Kansas City wheat is holding a low that we haven't seen in 11 years. And that is such a surprise, seeing that we had a high just 2 months ago. Cattle was higher, really got a big lift from the Friday's USDA cattle on feed report. It really gave futures some bullish support, and we were off to the races, up over $2 really at one point right now, building some momentum. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Following last week's crop tour, Tyne Morgan joins us for a look at the pricing stories soybeans are making as 2017 races to a close. Tyne?
Here now with Pete Meyer of S&P Global. Pete, you went on a crop tour last week. You were checking out pod counts. You were checking out the corn. It just seemed like this soybean crop out there isn't what we thought. I mean, the pod counts are down this year.
Well, I mean, I have an objective model that's been hanging around 47.4 the whole year. So to be honest with you, it really wasn't a surprise. And for me, the reason it wasn't a surprise because we spent a lot of time out there early in the year. We saw the emergence issues. We saw all the moisture. Then you have heat on top of it. So it's, you know, and the problem is when you talk to soybean producers, they will tell you that they can produce the best yields when they get it in early, and they did not get the soybean crop in early enough this year, and I think we're seeing the ramifications of that.
Yeah, I mean, we were in Iowa and in some of those western districts. I mean, we saw pod counts percentage-wise down double digits from last year. So do you think this can create some momentum in this soybean market?
I hope it can, because in my opinion, there's a really, really, really good soybean demand story. And I think that, you know, we've seen that this year when the Chinese and other consumers come to the U.S. very late in the season, rather than go to Brazil and the South American producers. I think there's a really, really great story there.
So moving forward, I mean, when could we see this hit the market? I mean, are we talking the next 3 months, 4 months? I mean, we're not talking until 2018 that we see that hit.
I think you really start to see it hit in January after the quarterly stocks report, because then we will know how big this crop is. I think the variability in the crop, I know we're talking about beans, but whether it be in beans and corn, tells you that we will not really know until we see the quarterly stocks report, maybe even the second quarter in March, where we take a look at it and see exactly what the stocks are. Then we will know more definitively what the size of the crop was.
And for corn prices' sake, do we need more acres to go into beans next year?
Where we are now, I would hope, but I don't necessarily think that's a driving factor. I think that unless corn prices rebound strongly, I think that the bankers are going to control how many soybean acres we plant. We saw it a little bit this year. I think we're going to see more next year, and hopefully we're going to plant more soybean acres next year than corn, because we really don't need extra corn at this point.
Yeah, Pete Meyer, all right. Thanks so much. Stay with us. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a moment.
For more information on PIRA's agricultural research and analysis, call 646-478-6465.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here, meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, as we look at the remnants of Harvey here, just an incredible storm, just unbelievable.
It is, even though our computer models were showing 25, 30 inches plus, they're going to be underdone. I mean, that's just amazing when you think about it. And it's all because Harvey has just been sitting in the same general area for 4 or 5 days, and that will always put down huge amounts of rain. I'm also showing a tropical storm off the East Coast. Models are projecting that to be one as it heads mainly out to sea, but it is going to affect the Outer Banks of North Carolina and also the eastern sections of North Carolina. So we have a weakening system, one that's just kind of falling apart close to Chicago. That'll still have some scattered showers and thunderstorms with it as we head through the day today. And then you can see Harvey starts to come northward. Some computer models are a little slower than ours, but this one is bringing it right up through Louisiana. During the nighttime hours tonight, it becomes not tropical anymore, so just a very wet area of low pressure over Louisiana. And that means heavy amounts of rain heading up the southern half of the Mississippi River Valley. How far north it comes before it starts to move east is still up in the air a little bit. We do have another cold front kind of coming southward into the northern Great Lakes as we head through the day tomorrow, and that will have some showers and thunderstorms on it. So still a lot of questions on where the remnants of Harvey actually go. But look at the rain amounts still projected. Over the past 24 hours, we've seen the huge amounts, obviously, and this is where our computer model takes it over the next 36 hours. And some of these numbers here are in the 8 to 10 inch category, even into Arkansas. When you get tropical moisture coming north with a system like this, it can put down huge amounts of rain way away from the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic in a different situation. High temperatures today, lots of 70s, northern Mississippi, Great Lakes, even some 60s for highs in parts of the Northeast, but the heat is on out west, some triple-digit numbers in places you typically don't see it. Low temperatures tomorrow morning, very pleasant and comfortable across the northeast quadrant of the country, even some low 50s showing up in northern portions of Maine. High temperatures tomorrow afternoon. Look at the 70s, lots of 70s across the Corn Belt northward, and then you can see the heat continues way to the south and southern areas, but it is muggy in the southern portions of the country. There's the jet stream, and you can see a trough kind of hanging on there. Now, whether this is the remnants of Harvey or not, I'm not sure. Either way, each one of these troughs, if Harvey comes too far north, it's going to get kicked to the east at some point, and we don't know the exact track. But by the middle of next week, look at that cold shot of air for much of the Midwest. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Spokane, Washington, sunny and extremely hot today, high of 100. Clinton, Oklahoma, a good deal of sunshine and pleasant, high of 84. In Mansfield, Ohio, a mixture of clouds and sunshine, shower or thunderstorm possible, high 75.
Machinery Pete is not only a leading expert in used farm equipment, he's also a shutterbug of sorts. We'll explain next on Ag Day, plus soil benefits beyond forage.
I'm Charles Denny. What's growing naturally in our fields could be good for the soil and a source of nutrition for Tennessee's cattle producers. That story from Spring Hill, Tennessee, coming up on Ag Day.
Machinery Pete is brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
Greg Peterson gleans plenty of knowledge from his trips to the auction. Well, today he shows us how to zoom in on pricing trends.
When it comes to used farm machinery values, folks, I've always thought in terms of a wide lens and a zoom lens. Now let's take a common example, say a Case IH 8940 Magnum tractor. Now Case IH made this model, it was very popular back in the late 90s for just a couple years, just over 200 horse. Now if we took the last 22 that have sold at auction, the average sale price is $40,843. So there's our big picture. But let's say we're trying to value an 8940 in real nice shape with low hours. Well, of those last 22 sold, 4 of the previous 5 highest prices before last week fell in the range from $55,000 to $61,000. And we saw 2 sold last week that also fell right in this range. Here's a picture of the first, a 1997 model 8940. It had 2,920 hours on it, sold on a farm auction in north central Iowa last Tuesday, brought $56,000. And the next day in west central Illinois on a consignment auction, this 1998 model 8940 with 3,298 hours on it brought $59,250. So there is our zoomed in picture on the value of a nice one. Now remember folks, if you're trying to find a used piece of equipment or trying to get a value, you know where to go. Come join me at machinerypete.com.
Still to come, soil science in Tennessee. In the Country is next.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M7 series. Learn more about the largest tractor in Kubota history at Kubota.com.
Native grasses make excellent forage for cattle farmers, and now there's increasing evidence these grasses are also good for the soil. That's from an ongoing study by the University of Tennessee's Institute of Agriculture. And this report provided by UT, Charles Denny, shows us how the research looks below ground for scientific answers.
A beef herd grazes contently at UT's Ag Research Center in Spring Hill. But before these cows can enjoy their breakfast, hay must grow. And that's where fertile ground comes in, producing this lush pasture of fescue grass.
We're blessed to have fescue. Fescue has its place, but we also, being proper managers of our forage, need to pull them off those fescue pastures and go to other things that can better serve the nutrient requirements of our beef cattle herds.
So what else would be good for cattle to eat? This land also includes big blue stem forage and switchgrass, native grasses being studied by UT's Institute of Agriculture. The research looks at improving the nutritional value of the forage, the economic benefits to farmers, and how native grasses thrive even in low nutrient soils.
This research project is happening here in Spring Hill on some of Tennessee's richest farmland and 3 other locations across the state. UT experts say it's important to monitor these native grasses over time, and this project is funded through 2020.
Dr. Pat Kaiser is director of UT's Center for Native Grasslands Management and leader of this study.
And what we're seeing from our research is that these native grasses make an awful lot of sense. That they produce a lot, cattle like them, they provide excellent gains, but they also get by on very low fertility.
Kaiser says some of these grasses are just a foot tall but have roots that go down 8 or 9 feet. Those roots in turn create an underground civilization, putting organic matter and carbon out, which is good for soil biodiversity.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that we've learned about healthy soils is that it's all about organic matter, and more specifically, it's about roots. Roots is where the life in the soil congregates. It's like the rivers, the streams, the ponds of the underground world.
These native grasses should keep growing through the end of August. We're talking cows here, but it's a classic chicken or the egg argument. Which comes first, the good ground or the healthy forage? Regardless, research shows they go together nicely. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. For Betsy, Tyne, and Mike, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in Farm Country.
AgDay is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest-lasting pickups.